8-year-old Marcus Thompson pressed his small face against the airplane window, watching the clouds drift by like cotton balls in the afternoon sky. His mother's words echoed in his mind as he glanced at the man sitting beside him in first class. The stranger wore an expensive black suit and had pale skin that seemed to glow under the cabin lights. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and, when he smiled, Marcus noticed his teeth were unusually white and sharp. "My mother always said the lonely ones just need someone," Marcus murmured, breaking the silence that had settled between them since takeoff from Los Angeles. The man, who had introduced himself as Victor Ashford, turned to look at the boy with curious dark eyes. "Your mother sounds like a wise woman," he replied in a smooth voice that carried a slight accent Marcus couldn't place. Marcus nodded solemnly. "She was. Before she got sick." His small hands fidgeted with the airplane blanket. "Now I'm going to live with my Uncle Robert in New York. I've never met him before." Victor studied the child with genuine interest. In his centuries of existence, he had encountered countless humans, but there was something different about this boy. Most children his age would be intimidated by Victor's presence, sensing something otherworldly about him even if they couldn't name it. But Marcus seemed completely at ease, as if he recognized a kindred spirit in loneliness. "Tell me about your mother," Victor said gently, surprising himself with his genuine curiosity. Marcus's eyes lit up despite his sadness. "Her name was Sarah. She worked at the hospital helping sick people get better. She said everyone deserves kindness, especially the ones who seem scary or different." He paused, looking directly at Victor. "She said lonely people sometimes act mean because they forgot what it feels like to be loved." A strange sensation stirred in Victor's chest, something he hadn't felt in decades. This child's innocent wisdom struck him in a way that caught him off guard. For over 200 years, he had existed in the shadows, feeding when necessary, moving from city to city, never forming connections. He had convinced himself that solitude was his nature, that immortal beings like himself were meant to walk alone. "Your mother sounds like an extraordinary person," Victor said softly. "How long has she been gone?" 3 weeks, Marcus replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "The cancer took her really fast. She made me promise to be brave and to remember that everyone has a story, even the scary ones." Victor felt an unfamiliar tightness in his throat. He had been called many things over the centuries: monster, predator, nightmare, but never had someone looked at him and seen simply another lonely soul in need of companionship. The flight attendant, a cheerful woman named Jennifer, approached their seats. "Can I get you gentlemen anything to drink?" she asked with a practiced smile. "Orange juice, please," Marcus said politely. "Red wine," Victor replied, then caught himself. "Actually, just water will be fine." As Jennifer moved away, Marcus turned to Victor with the directness that only children possess. "Are you scared of flying?" "No," Victor answered honestly. "I've traveled this way many times." "What about you?" "A little," Marcus admitted. "Everything's new and different now. Uncle Robert says he has a big apartment in Manhattan, but I don't know if he likes kids. My mom said he's been alone for a long time too." Victor found himself genuinely engaged in conversation for the first time in years. "What do you like to do, Marcus?" The boy's face brightened. "I like to read stories about adventures and faraway places. My mom used to read to me every night. She did different voices for all the characters." His expression grew wistful. "I brought some books in my backpack. Uncle Robert probably doesn't know about bedtime stories." Without thinking, Victor said, "I could read to you sometime, if you'd like. I know quite a few stories." Marcus's eyes widened with delight. "Really? You wouldn't mind?" The question hung in the air as Victor realized what he had just offered. For 2 centuries, he had avoided forming bonds with humans, knowing that their mortal lives were fleeting compared to his immortal existence. Yet something about this brave little boy made him want to break his own rules. "I wouldn't mind at all," Victor said, and meant it. As the plane continued its journey eastward, Marcus began sharing stories about his life with his mother. He talked about their small apartment in Los Angeles, about Saturday morning pancakes and trips to the library. He described his mother's garden where she grew tomatoes and sunflowers, and how she always left food out for the stray cats in their neighborhood. She said taking care of others was the most important thing a person could do, Marcus explained. Even when she was getting sicker, she still worried about everyone else. Victor listened intently, finding himself moved by the child's memories. Sarah Thompson had clearly been a remarkable woman who had raised her son to see the world with compassion and understanding. It was a perspective Victor had nearly forgotten after decades of cynicism and isolation. "Your mother taught you well," Victor said. "Not everyone learns to see beyond the surface." Marcus studied Victor's face with those perceptive eyes. "You seem sad, like you've been alone for a really long time. But you have kind eyes. My mom said you can always tell about people by their eyes." The observation hit Victor with unexpected force. This child, who had just lost everything familiar in his world, was offering comfort to a stranger. It was a generosity of spirit that Victor had rarely encountered in his long existence. "I have been alone for a long time," Victor admitted, more honest than he had been with anyone in decades. "Sometimes I forgot that it didn't have to be that way." "Maybe we can be friends," Marcus suggested with the simple faith of childhood. "My mom said the best friendships happen when two lonely people find each other." Victor felt something inside him shift, like ice beginning to thaw after a long winter. He had spent so many years convinced that his nature made him incompatible with human connection. Yet here was this remarkable child, offering friendship without fear or judgment. "I would like that very much," Victor said quietly. As the afternoon wore on, they continued talking. Marcus showed Victor his favorite book, a worn copy of adventure stories, and Victor found himself sharing carefully edited tales of his travels around the world. He spoke of cities he had seen, cultures he had encountered, and beautiful places that had captured his imagination over the years. Marcus listened with rapt attention, occasionally asking questions that showed his quick intelligence. When Victor mentioned seeing the northern lights in Alaska, the boy's eyes grew wide with wonder. "I'd love to see something like that someday," Marcus said wistfully. "Mom and I were going to travel when I got older. She had a whole list of places she wanted to show me." "Perhaps you still can," Victor suggested gently. "Your uncle might enjoy traveling with you." "Maybe," Marcus said, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. "I hope he's nice. I don't know what I'll do if he doesn't want me around." The vulnerability in the child's voice touched something deep in Victor's heart. This brave little boy was facing an uncertain future with remarkable courage, yet underneath his maturity, he was still a frightened child who had lost the most important person in his world. "Any man would be fortunate to have you in his life," Victor said firmly. "You're intelligent, kind, and wise beyond your years. Your uncle will see that." Marcus smiled, the first truly happy expression Victor had seen from him during the flight. "Thank you for saying that. It makes me feel less scared." As the plane began its descent into New York, Victor felt an unexpected reluctance to see their journey end. For the first time in decades, he had experienced genuine human connection, and the prospect of returning to his solitary existence felt suddenly hollow. "Marcus," he said carefully, "if you ever need anything, or if you just want to talk, I want you to have my phone number." The boy nodded eagerly as Victor wrote his contact information on a napkin. "Will you really answer if I call?" "I promise," Victor said, and he meant it completely. As they gathered their belongings and prepared to disembark, Marcus looked up at Victor with those wise young eyes. "I'm glad we sat together today. My mom was right about lonely people needing someone. I think we both needed a friend." Victor smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. "Your mother was very wise indeed." They walked off the plane together, Marcus's small hand trustingly placed in Victor's as they navigated the busy terminal. At the arrival gate, a tall man with graying hair and kind eyes held a sign with Marcus's name. "That must be Uncle Robert," Marcus said, suddenly, seeming very young and uncertain. Victor knelt down to the boy's eye level. "Remember what your mother taught you about kindness and seeing beyond the surface. Give your uncle a chance to know the remarkable person you are." Marcus hugged Victor impulsively, and, for a moment, the ancient immortal felt what it meant to truly care for another being's well-being. "Thank you for being my friend," Marcus whispered. "Thank you for reminding me what friendship means," Victor whispered back. As Marcus ran toward his uncle, Victor watched from a distance, ensuring the reunion went smoothly. Robert Thompson's face lit up when he saw his nephew, and Victor felt a wave of relief when the man knelt down to embrace the boy warmly. Walking away from the terminal, Victor pulled out his phone and saved Marcus's name in his contacts. For the first time in 2 centuries, he had someone to check on, someone whose well-being mattered to him. The lonely vampire king had found something he never expected to discover again: hope for connection in an immortal life that had grown cold and empty. The city lights of New York twinkled ahead as Victor made his way into the night, but the darkness that had been his constant companion for so long seemed less absolute. A small boy's wisdom had begun to illuminate corners of his heart that he had thought permanently closed. Marcus Thompson, the child who had lost everything yet still offered kindness to a stranger, had accomplished something that centuries of existence had not. He had reminded Victor Ashford that even the immortal could learn to live again. 3 months had passed since the flight that changed both their lives, and Victor found himself in the unfamiliar position of actually looking forward to his phone ringing. Marcus had called him every Sunday evening without fail, their conversations becoming a bright spot in Victor's otherwise predictable existence. "Victor, you won't believe what happened at school today," Marcus's excited voice came through the phone as Victor settled into his leather chair in his penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. "Tell me everything," Victor replied, surprised by how genuinely interested he was in the details of an 8-year-old's daily life. "We had to write about someone who inspired us, and I wrote about you," Marcus said proudly. "Mrs. Patterson said it was the best essay in the class. She wants to meet you sometime." Victor felt a warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the blood he had consumed earlier that evening. "You wrote about me? What did you say?" "I told them about how you helped me not be scared on the airplane, and how you know stories about places all around the world. I said you taught me that being different doesn't mean being bad, and that the most interesting people are usually the ones who seem mysterious at first." The irony wasn't lost on Victor. If Marcus's teacher knew exactly how mysterious and different he truly was, she would hardly want to meet him. Yet the boy's innocent faith in their friendship continued to astonish him. "How are things with your Uncle Robert?" Victor asked, genuinely concerned about Marcus's adjustment to his new life. "Much better," Marcus replied with obvious relief. "He was really nervous at first because he didn't know how to take care of a kid, but we figured it out together. He's teaching me to cook, and I'm teaching him about bedtime stories. He's not very good at the different voices yet, but he tries really hard." Victor smiled, imagining the scene. "It sounds like you're both learning." "He asked about you the other day," Marcus continued. "I told him how we became friends on the plane, and he said he'd like to thank you for being so kind to me. Maybe you could come have dinner with us sometime?" The suggestion caught Victor off guard. In all his years of existence, he had never been invited to a family dinner. The logistics alone would be challenging. He would need to be careful about what and how much he ate, ensure he didn't stay too late, and maintain his carefully constructed human facade. "That's very kind of your uncle," Victor said carefully. "Perhaps we could arrange something." "Really?" Marcus's voice lit up with excitement. "Uncle Robert makes amazing spaghetti, and I could show you my room and all my books. Oh, and you could meet Whiskers." "Whiskers?" "My cat," Marcus explained. "Uncle Robert said I could adopt one from the shelter to help me feel more at home. She's orange and white, and she purrs really loud when you pet her. Mom always said animals can tell if people have good hearts." Victor wondered what the cat would make of him. Animals were typically more perceptive than humans when it came to sensing his true nature. Most dogs whined and backed away, while cats either fled or, strangely, seemed drawn to his otherworldly presence. "I'd like to meet Whiskers," Victor said honestly. "When would be a good time for this dinner?" "How about next Saturday? Uncle Robert doesn't work on weekends, and I don't have any homework then, but..." As they made plans, Victor found himself both anticipating and dreading the visit. It had been so long since he had attempted to integrate into a normal human household, even temporarily. Yet the genuine warmth in Marcus's voice made it impossible to refuse. After ending the call, Victor stood at his floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city below. The lights twinkled like earthbound stars, and somewhere among those millions of people was a little boy who had somehow seen past all of Victor's carefully maintained barriers to the lonely soul beneath. Saturday evening arrived sooner than Victor expected. He had spent considerable time selecting appropriate clothing, settling on dark jeans and a navy sweater that looked expensive but not intimidatingly so. He had also stopped by an upscale market to purchase wine for Robert and a selection of gourmet chocolates for Marcus. The Thompson apartment was in a respectable building on the Upper West Side. As Victor rode the elevator to the 8th floor, he felt an emotion he hadn't experienced in decades: nervousness. What if Robert sensed something was different about him? What if the evening was a disaster? His concerns evaporated the moment Marcus opened the door. The boy's face lit up with pure joy as he launched himself into Victor's arms for a hug. "You came! You really came!" Marcus exclaimed. "Uncle Robert, he's here." Robert Thompson appeared in the doorway, a tall man with kind eyes and flour dusting his shirt. He extended his hand with a warm smile. "You must be Victor. I can't thank you enough for befriending Marcus on that flight. It meant the world to him during a very difficult time." Victor shook Robert's hand, noting the man's firm grip and genuine expression. "Marcus is an extraordinary young man. The pleasure has been entirely mine." Come in," Robert said, ushering Victor into a cozy living space that clearly showed signs of recent child-proofing and decoration. Colorful artwork hung on the walls alongside more sophisticated pieces, creating an interesting blend of adult and child sensibilities. "This is Whiskers," Marcus announced, scooping up a plump orange and white cat who purred loudly in his arms. "Whiskers, this is Victor, the friend I told you about." To Victor's surprise, the cat showed no fear or agitation in his presence. Instead, she seemed to regard him with calm, intelligent eyes before beginning to purr even louder. "She likes you," Marcus observed with satisfaction. "I knew she would." The dinner was a revelation for Victor. He had forgotten what it felt like to be part of a family gathering, even temporarily. Robert proved to be excellent company, sharing stories about his work as a graphic designer while asking Victor thoughtful questions about his own career. Victor had long ago perfected a cover story about being an independent art consultant who traveled frequently, which explained both his knowledge of different cultures and his flexible schedule. Marcus was the star of the evening, regaling them with stories from school and showing Victor his collection of books and drawings. The boy had artistic talent, Victor noticed, studying a detailed sketch of the airplane where they had first met. "You captured the scene perfectly," Victor said, genuinely impressed. "You have your uncle's eye for visual details." "Marcus gets that from his mother's side of the family," Robert said with a fond smile. "Sarah was always drawing or creating something beautiful. She would have loved to see how talented he's becoming." The mention of Marcus's mother brought a momentary sadness to the boy's eyes, but he brightened quickly. "Victor, will you tell Uncle Robert about the Northern Lights? He doesn't believe they're as amazing as you described." As Victor shared carefully edited accounts of his travels, he watched Robert's expression shift from polite interest to genuine fascination. The man was clearly intelligent and well-read, making for engaging conversation that Victor found himself thoroughly enjoying. "You've had quite an adventurous life," Robert observed. "Marcus is lucky to have someone so worldly as a friend." "I'm afraid my own experiences are rather limited to the East Coast." "Every life has its own adventures," Victor replied diplomatically. "And you've taken on the greatest adventure of all, raising a child." Robert's expression softened as he looked at his nephew. "Some days I feel completely out of my depth, but Marcus makes it easier than I expected. He's resilient and wise, probably more mature than I am half the time." "My mom always said Uncle Robert was the smart one in the family," Marcus chimed in. "She said he just needed someone to take care of to show how good his heart is." Victor saw Robert's eyes miss slightly at the compliment, and he felt a deep respect for this man who had opened his carefully ordered life to give his orphan nephew a home. After dinner, Marcus insisted on showing Victor his room, which was a perfect blend of child's sanctuary and budding artist's studio. Books lined one wall, while drawings and paintings covered another. A comfortable reading chair sat by the window, clearly Marcus's favorite spot. "This is where I sit when I call you on Sundays," Marcus explained. "I can see the park from here, and sometimes I imagine you're out there somewhere in the city." Victor felt his unnecessary heart constrict. "It's a beautiful room, Marcus." You've made it very much your own. Uncle Robert says I can paint the walls any color I want next month, Marcus said excitedly. What color do you think would be best? As they discussed paint colors and room arrangements, Victor found himself drawn into the domestic details of the boy's life in a way that surprised him. For centuries, he had observed human existence from the outside, never participating in the small decisions and daily routines that gave life meaning. When it came time to leave, Victor felt reluctant to end the evening. Robert had insisted he take home leftover pasta, and Marcus had given him a drawing of the three of them sitting around the dinner table, with Whiskers perched on Victor's shoulder. Thank you for coming, Marcus said, hugging Victor tightly at the door. This was the best Saturday ever. Thank you for inviting me, Victor replied, meaning it completely. Your home is filled with warmth and love. Robert shook Victor's hand again. Please don't be a stranger. You're welcome here anytime. Marcus clearly adores you, and I can see why. You're good for him. As Victor made his way home through the nighttime streets, he carried Marcus's drawing carefully in his hand. The simple sketch showed three figures smiling around a table, and, for the first time in centuries, Victor saw himself as others might see him, not as a monster or predator, but as a friend, a welcome guest, a valued member of a small but meaningful community. Back in his penthouse, Victor placed the drawing on his refrigerator, something he had never imagined doing. The cheerful faces seemed to brighten his usually stark kitchen, reminding him that he was no longer entirely alone in the world. His phone rang just as he was settling in for the evening. Victor? Marcus's voice was sleepy but happy. I forgot to tell you something important. What's that? Uncle Robert really likes you. After you left, he said you were exactly the kind of friend he hoped I would make. He said you seem like someone who understands what it means to care about people. Victor closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the simple acceptance he had found in this small family. Your uncle is a good man, Marcus. You're very lucky to have him. I know, Marcus said with a yawn. And I'm lucky to have you too. Good night, Victor. Good night, Marcus. As Victor hung up the phone, he realized that for the first time in his immortal existence, he wasn't counting the years or decades stretching endlessly ahead of him. Instead, he was looking forward to next Sunday's phone call, to future dinner invitations, to watching Marcus grow and learn and discover the world. The lonely vampire king had found something more precious than he had ever imagined possible, a family who accepted him without question, who valued his presence, who had given him a reason to engage with life rather than simply endure it. Outside his windows, New York continued its endless rhythm of activity, but, inside his apartment, Victor felt a peace he had never known. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new needs to balance his true nature with his desire to remain part of Marcus and Robert's lives, but, tonight, he was simply a friend who had been welcomed home. The drawing on his refrigerator seemed to glow in the soft light, a testament to the power of unexpected connections and the remarkable ability of a child's love to transform even the most isolated of souls. Victor had spent 2 centuries convinced that immortal beings were meant to walk alone, but an 8-year-old boy had proven him wonderfully wrong. 2 years had transformed Victor's existence in ways he never could have anticipated. What began as a chance encounter with a grieving child had evolved into the most meaningful relationship of his centuries-long life. Marcus, now 10 years old, had become the center of Victor's world, though the boy had no idea of the profound impact he had made on an immortal being. The phone call came on a Tuesday evening in November, and Victor knew immediately that something was wrong. Instead of Marcus's usual cheerful voice, Robert's tense tone greeted him. Victor, I need to ask you something important, and I need you to be completely honest with me, Robert said without preamble. Victor felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. Of course. What's happened? Marcus is in the hospital, Robert said, his voice breaking slightly. The doctors found something during his routine checkup. They're running more tests, but they think it might be the same type of cancer that took his mother. The words hit Victor like a physical blow. In all his years of existence, he had never felt such immediate, devastating fear. The thought of losing Marcus, of watching that bright light fade from the world, was unbearable. Which hospital? Victor asked, already reaching for his coat. Mount Sinai. But, Victor, before you come, I need to know something. Marcus has been talking about you constantly since he got scared. He keeps saying that you'll know what to do, that you can help somehow. He has this absolute faith in you that goes beyond normal friendship. Victor closed his eyes, understanding the weight of what Robert was really asking. What exactly do you want to know? I've been watching you for 2 years, Robert said quietly. You never eat much when you're here. You know things about history and places that seem impossibly detailed. You never age, not even slightly. And, Marcus talks about you like you're some kind of guardian angel who appeared exactly when he needed you most. The silence stretched between them before Robert continued. I don't care what you are, Victor. I've seen how much you love my nephew, and I know you would never hurt him. But, if there's something you can do to save him, something beyond what normal people can do, I'm begging you to tell me. Victor stood in his apartment, facing the moment he had always known would come. The careful balance he had maintained between his true nature and his desire to be part of Marcus's life was crumbling. Yet as he thought of that brave little boy lying in a hospital bed, facing the same disease that had taken his mother, the choice became crystal clear. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Victor said. And, Robert? You're right to trust me with this. The hospital corridors seemed endless as Victor made his way to Marcus's room. He had fed heavily before coming, knowing that what he was about to attempt would require all of his strength. The decision had been made the moment Robert called. He would not lose Marcus, regardless of the consequences to himself. Marcus was awake when Victor entered the room, his small face pale but his eyes still bright with the intelligence and courage that had first captured Victor's attention on that airplane 2 years ago. Victor! Marcus exclaimed, struggling to sit up in the hospital bed. I knew you'd come. Uncle Robert was worried, but I told him you always keep your promises. Victor approached the bed, his enhanced senses immediately detecting the scent of sickness that clung to the boy. The cancer was aggressive, already spreading through Marcus's system with the same ruthless efficiency that had claimed his mother. How are you feeling, brave one? Victor asked gently, taking Marcus's small hand in his own. Scared, Marcus admitted with the honesty that Victor had always admired. The doctors are using big words and looking sad. It's the same way they looked at Mom before. He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. Robert stood by the window, his face etched with grief and desperate hope. Victor met his eyes and saw the unspoken question there. The man was prepared to accept any solution, no matter how impossible it might seem. Marcus, Victor said carefully, what if I told you there was a way to make sure you never got sick again? A way to make you strong enough to live for a very, very long time? The boy studied Victor's face with those perceptive eyes. You mean like in the stories? Like magic? Something like that, Victor replied. But, it would mean becoming different from other people. You would still be you, but you would be changed in ways that can never be undone. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his young mind processing the implications of Victor's words. Finally, he asked, would I still be able to be with Uncle Robert? And, you? Yes, Victor promised. We would be family, all of us, for as long as we wanted. And, I wouldn't die like Mom did? No, you wouldn't die like your mother did. Marcus squeezed Victor's hand with surprising strength. Then, I want you to help me. I trust you more than anyone in the world. Robert stepped forward, his voice hoarse with emotion. What exactly are you asking us to consider? Victor looked at both of them, these two people who had become his entire world. I'm asking you to trust me to save Marcus's life, knowing that he will be different afterwards. He will be stronger, faster, and he will live much longer than normal humans. But he will also have needs that regular people don't have. What kind of needs? Robert asked, though his tone suggested he was prepared to accept whatever the answer might be. He will need to feed differently, Victor said carefully. Not often, and not in a way that hurts people, but it will be necessary for his survival. Understanding dawned in Robert's eyes. You're talking about making him like you, aren't you? Whatever you are. Victor nodded slowly. I am what most people would call a vampire, though the reality is far different from the stories. I can give Marcus the strength to fight this disease and live a long life, but only by sharing my nature with him. Marcus looked between the two most important people in his life, his young mind grappling with concepts that would terrify most adults. "Will it hurt?" he asked simply. "Not for long," Victor assured him. "And I will be with you through everything. I promise you will never be alone or frightened." "What about Uncle Robert?" Marcus asked, his concern for his guardian touching Victor's heart. "Will he be safe?" "Completely safe," Victor promised. "You will still be the same Marcus inside, just stronger. You'll still love reading and drawing and all the things you love now." Marcus turned to his uncle with the gravity of someone much older than his 10 years. "Uncle Robert, what do you think? Mom always said the most important thing was taking care of the people you love." Robert's eyes filled with tears as he moved to sit on the edge of the hospital bed. "Your mother also said that miracles come in unexpected packages, and that we should never be afraid of hope." He looked at Victor with complete trust. "If Victor can save you, then that's what we'll do." The transformation took place that night, with Robert standing guard and Victor carefully controlling every aspect of the process. He had never attempted to turn a child before, and the responsibility felt overwhelming. But, as he held Marcus's small form and shared his immortal essence, he felt the rightness of the decision resonate through every fiber of his being. Marcus's recovery was remarkable by medical standards. Within days, his test results showed no trace of cancer, his strength returned, and his pallor gave way to a healthy glow. The doctors were baffled but delighted, attributing his improvement to some inexplicable medical miracle. The real adjustments came in the weeks that followed. Victor moved to an apartment in Robert's building, ostensibly to be closer to his young friend during his recovery. In reality, he needed to be available to guide Marcus through the changes in his new nature. The boy adapted to his enhanced abilities with the resilience that had always characterized him. His increased strength and speed delighted him, though Victor was careful to teach him control and discretion. Marcus's need for blood was minimal compared to Victor's own requirements, and Victor had arranged for medical supplies that satisfied the boy's needs without ethical concerns. "Am I still human?" Marcus asked one evening as they sat in Victor's apartment, working on homework together. "You're human in all the ways that matter," Victor replied. "You have the same heart, the same kindness, the same curiosity about the world. You just have additional abilities now. And we'll be together for a long time?" "As long as you want," Victor promised. "You'll always have choices, Marcus. This gift comes with time to discover who you want to become." Robert had adjusted to the situation with remarkable equanimity, perhaps because his relief at having Marcus alive and healthy overshadowed any concerns about the supernatural aspects of their new reality. He had quit his job to homeschool Marcus, allowing them flexibility as they navigated their unusual circumstances. "I've been thinking," Robert said one evening as the three of them prepared dinner together. "Maybe it's time we traveled somewhere new. Marcus has been asking about those northern lights you described, and I think we could all use an adventure." Victor looked at this man who had accepted the impossible with such grace, who had embraced not just Marcus's transformation but Victor's true nature with complete trust. "Alaska in winter can be challenging," he warned. "We're not exactly a typical family," Robert replied with a smile. "I think we can handle challenging." Marcus looked up from the vegetables he was chopping, his eyes bright with excitement. "Really? We could all go together?" "If Victor is willing to be our guide," Robert said. Victor felt that familiar warmth spread through his chest, the sensation that had become associated with belonging to something greater than himself. "I can't think of anything I'd like more." That night, as Victor tucked Marcus into bed, the boy looked up at him with sleepy contentment. "Victor, do you think Mom would be happy about what happened?" Victor considered the question seriously. "I think your mother would be grateful that you're alive and surrounded by people who love you. She wanted you to have a full life, and now you have the time to experience everything she dreamed of showing you." "And she was right about lonely people needing someone," Marcus added drowsily. "You weren't really the vampire king on that airplane. You were just someone who needed a family, like me." As Marcus drifted off to sleep, Victor reflected on the extraordinary turn his existence had taken. 2 years ago, he had been exactly what the boy described, a lonely immortal being who had forgotten what it meant to truly live rather than simply survive. Now he was part of something precious and rare, a family built not on blood relations but on love, trust, and the conscious choice to care for one another. Marcus would have centuries to explore the world, to develop his talents, to make his own mark on existence. Robert would age naturally while being part of something wonderful and strange. And Victor would experience what he had never dared hope for, the joy of watching someone he loved grow and flourish. The vampire who had once ruled his solitude like a dark kingdom had discovered that the greatest power was not dominion over others, but the surrender that came with letting others matter. A small boy's wisdom had transformed not just Victor's existence, but had created something entirely new, a family that transcended the ordinary boundaries of mortality and species. As Victor looked out at the city lights from Marcus's bedroom window, he no longer saw a world of isolated individuals struggling through their brief lives. Instead, he saw infinite possibilities for connection, for love that could bridge any gap, for the kind of profound relationships that made immortality not a burden to be endured, but a gift to be shared. The lonely ones had found each other, just as Sarah Thompson had always known they would. And, in finding each other, they had discovered that the most powerful magic was not supernatural ability or immortal strength, but the simple, transformative act of choosing to love without reservation. Marcus stirred in his sleep, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth, safe in the knowledge that he was cherished and protected. Victor settled into the chair beside the bed, content to watch over the boy who had taught him that even the immortal could learn to live again. Outside, New York hummed with its endless energy, but, inside this small room, three unlikely souls had created something that would endure far longer than any city, a love that had conquered death itself, and a family that would face whatever adventures awaited them with courage, unity, and the unshakable bond forged between a lonely vampire king and the remarkable child who had shown him the way home.